The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
It's the West Tigers podcast, and it is a post-victory edition of the podcast, and they are always the most fun to have. We're going to have a little bit of fun with the one-word submissions from me in a moment. I hope it's fun. I hope it doesn't go down like a lead balloon, but we'll see how we go. Steve's here and Nick's here. Steve, one word for that performance out at Parramatta yesterday afternoon, which you attended.
Determined, Joel, from kick-off to final whistle.
Determined.
All 17 players, plus a coach, coaching staff, 26,000 fans. They were determined to get a victory.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep, and that came through on the television. I think Nick watched it on TV as well. Your one word, Nick.
I did, Joel. Unfortunately, wasn't there, but mate, I couldn't settle on one word. I've got a few. I thought intensity initially, because I thought we played with a great deal of intensity for the whole 80 minutes. Bog was another one. The field was an absolute pigsty. Warragamba, another one. Looked like Warragamba Dam had just flooded onto Combank there. Happiness. It's probably the happiest I've been on a Sunday for a long time. It was just a really nice way to end the weekend. Pride, not the rainbow flag, but I was just had an extremely fulfilling sense of pride. And fulfilling is the one I settled on. It was just a really fulfilling afternoon, and really happy to watch the way we played that game against the Dogs.
It's sometimes the word bog would be appropriate to use for a West Tigers performance. Bog average. All right, 28-14 was the final score. I've taken some liberty, as I always do. I've got three words for my first one word. I've got wet weather football. It was really a day of wet weather football, as you say. Couldn't believe the amount of water that was on the pitch. Sprinklers, Steve. I think I've worked out how we win at Campbelltown. What we need to do is turn the sprinklers on, or get industrial grade sprinklers and run them for 3 or 4 days before the Tigers next play at Campbelltown. It certainly, I don't think it hurt the West Tigers style playing in a slow slog out.
No, absolutely, Joel. And I've got that down as, we look at how we won that game. We'll get into it later, so I don't want to steal all the thunder for later on in the pod. But the weather certainly helped us. It slowed the game down considerably, and we struggle against teams that build momentum and off quick play the ball and spread the ball quickly and effectively. And obviously in that game, Canterbury weren't able to do that at all, and it helped us to no end.
I've also got physicality in there. I thought our physicality in the first half was really, really good. Maybe fell off a little bit in the second half. And I've got dumb and dumber. And Brent Naden.
You're talking about Lockie again?
No, Brent Naden gets dumb. Yeah. But Adam Doueihi gets dumber. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean it in a positive sense. So I'm channeling Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber, and instead of it being, just when I think you couldn't be any more stupid, in Dewey's case, it's just when I've written you off, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself. It was just an incredible performance from Adam Doueihi, Nick. I mean, I know the conditions might have suited, but still, best player on the field. I don't know where that came from, unless it's contract talk that helps. I don't know.
I did hear in the post-match interview, I can't remember who said it, one of the Tigers boys said that during the week might have been Jahream, said they were teasing him at training, saying he was playing for a contract this week, but he certainly played that way. He really stood up. And one thing that I did take note and see across the TV coverage was the way Adu was talking to the players when they're in a huddle just before they went off at halftime. He was screaming, and Jahream was just sitting or standing next to him, biting his tongue, listening to every word. So, yeah, great game from AD.
Yeah, I mean, he really took it by the scruff of the neck, and that I got that in my notes to make that point. He really looked like he was leading the team. Steve, I've up until last week was sort of saying I'm not fussed if he goes. We've got Madden when going in a different direction. Now it's turned around, 2-year contract for Doueihi. Where do you sit with it all after that performance?
I'm no different to what I was last week on the pod. I said that I'd be offering him something. I think he's, I wouldn't have said 7, obviously. I think he could be a 13 for us if he has the mindset to play 13 for us. I think he could do that. His defense has been a weakness historically for us. And at 13, he's got to pump out 80 minutes of, a lot of tackling. So I'm not sure that he's up for that, but he seems to be. His defense has improved a lot this year. But he does offer us the versatility of jumping in at halfback when it's needed. And, I thought that was a masterstroke by Benji. Like, it wasn't a Latu Fainu day. The conditions weren't going to favour him. It was an intense atmosphere. It could have boiled over. Canterbury could have lost it, but we also could have lost it. So I think having that experienced head out there from the outset, helping Appy and Jahream Bula and the other leaders of the team was a really smart move. So, yeah, I'm the same as what I was last week. I'd be offering him a contract. They've upped it today. They've gone from 1 year to 2 years. I don't know if the money's any different. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. He can start at 7 when we need it. I'd still prefer Fainu as our preferred 7. I still think that's the way we need to go. And you look at Doueihi at 13. But if that's not working, or case by case, game by game plan by game plan, he's not a bad option for 7 if you need it.
Nick, are you of the same mind? You're happy if he was to sign a 2-year contract? The only reason I guess I'm saying or would be concerned about it is if there's somebody that he's blocking that you want to maybe play as a specialist in, say, if we were to buy a lock or we presume Madden is going to be in the argument for the halves. Like, where do you sit with it? I don't want to lose him now, but I don't know how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm the same. I know we've been talking about AD playing 13 most of the year, or he'd be, definitely a candidate to play 13. And we haven't had a great look at it yet. And we've always spoken about whether his defense could hold out to that sort of role, especially for long periods during a match. And I guess that's yet to be seen and yet to be, judged. But what he showed on Sunday, like you said, Steve, he's a perfect fill-in 7 if we need him. He's played 7 before, and for many, many, times, or many times in the past, Gary said he doesn't want to see him play 7 again, but he did a really good job. And I actually think it was a pretty impressive masterstroke there from Benji before the game. And I did share the team, I know, to Eddie in a chat yesterday before kickoff, and I said some interesting changes there. And I know Eddie was a bit perplexed and said, had some question marks over what they were doing, but those conditions probably did suit a long kicker, and AD is the longest general play kicker in our team. We needed all of that extra carry on the general play kicks to get as much, down the field sort of meterage as possible. And we probably needed to shore up the middle a bit too, the way that the Bulldogs play, although, as we've said, that wet track was a great leveler yesterday. So I'd like to see AD stick around. It really depends on what they've offered him, not so much money-wise and length-wise, but maybe position-wise, and what he's been told that he's going to be, what number he's going to have on the back of the jersey next year. It's not going to be starting halves. Where else do you put him? If it's not starting 13, it's a bench role, and I don't think he's going to want to be a bench player. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I think he's got a lot of value, so I'd like to see him stay, but we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I just want to say there, like Nick, you said, like fill in half. Yeah, he can be a fill in half. Absolutely. Like if we get an injury at half or 5'8", he can fill in. But yesterday there was no filling about it, right? It was a specific tactic to take a bigger body with a bigger kicking game, an experienced player, a guy who talks a lot, out into a war zone that was going to be tough and going to be hard. And it wasn't the sort of day where Latu Fainu was going to excel. His acceleration off the mark was totally wiped out by the conditions. So to me, like, I'm excited about what happened, because I think it was great to see Benji modify his game plan based on the conditions and the opposition, and pick a team, a starting 13, specific to the needs on the day, right? And I've been concerned that he hasn't done that a lot. And I agree with you, Nick. Like, where do you play? I think utility 14, he can play that. Now, whether he wants to or not, I don't know. I think he'd be a great 14 for us, if not 13. But he's starting to convince me. And look, he's done this before, and he can go and have a month of very average football. He's got to get that out of his system, not do that. But he's starting to convince me that he can make it as a 13 and would be a good 13 for us, because we do struggle when we are just dependent on our 7 and 6. Right? He gives us that extra body in at first receiver as a 13, maybe down the blind side, down the short side, taking the first pass, and just giving Luai and giving what's the other one? What's his name? Fainu. Fainu more space to get a little bit wider and get them to straighten the attack. So, yeah, I'm becoming more and more convinced.
It's an incredible story when you think about the injuries that he's had and the positional changes that he's had, that he still keeps finding another gear. It's really, regardless of what we think of him as a footballer, but it stands to his character and his fight. Where he was a couple of years ago, nobody would have blamed him if he walked away. So it's quite a remarkable story. Let's have a look at the West Tigers podcast forum. Lots and lots of activity in the last week, which is great to see. So keep it coming and join up if you haven't already and have your say. The one-word submissions from the West Tigers podcast forum. Tiger Town SFS, their word was Doueihi. Canberra Tigers' word was boo. And I don't think that's like a ghost, but I think that's like a boo, because I heard a lot of that coming through on the Channel 9, on the Fox coverage. And I didn't have to have the sound turned down because it was Warren Smith and Cooper Cronk, who I can sort of tolerate, but if it was some other commentators, I wouldn't have heard any of those boos. Mike's word was contract. Give the man a contract. We presume, Mike, that you're talking about Doueihi. And on the Richo meter, Mike said we were average, and I'm okay with average. I'm okay if we're average every week till the rest of the year. That gives you something to build off. Tigersman's word was inspired, an inspired performance from Adam Doueihi. Natmac 78's contribution was team. We played like one for 80 minutes. Tiger 70's word was coach. No doubt giving Benji a rap for his coaching. Cade's 79 word was gutsy, had a crack, and it was a solid effort across the park. JH 98's word was justice. Osmo 7 said desire. The team showed a desire to win. Over the page, Tigers Doueihi, the heart of the team, and there is still some hope for a semi-finals appearance, but I don't quite know about that. It's Tiger Stew, but I like your optimism.
Joel, I'll just say, Tiger Stew, I'm with you, mate, because this morning when I was eating my Wheat Bix, I was looking through the drawer and I was saying,
yeah, you're doing the math.
Who are the Dolphins playing?
Chris's word was claws out. Tiger Symmetry revenge, and it is a meal best served cold and wet. Pat Walker, moist. The rain makes us play better. CQ Tiger's word was pride. Tiger 5150, resilience. Our resilience and fight forced the Dogs into lots of errors. Rach 09, satisfaction. It was the most satisfying win we've had for some time. I'd agree with that. Mercy Rule, Bula, an out star. Enumerator, Adam, what a game. Teddy S, diamonds, but who knows what we'll get next week. Mac Tiger's word was happiness this week and next. Yeah, it's always good to have a win going into a bye. That's always a lovely luxury. Redman, their word was one, or their number was one. The one game we get some calls from the ref. Tigers Eye, bravo. Typical Tigers win. We couldn't put them away, and they took a couple of years off our lives. I was getting a bit worried in that second half. Dirty Red's word was scrap. We kept it simple, worked hard and took our chances. Lorenzo, their word was Fainu's. Both Samuela and Sione, their contributions. Barra's word coached. Benji got one over Serraldo. And last but not least, Snake, professional. They performed as a professional unit. And Nick, that's something that struck me somewhat when I was watching the game, is that quite often when you compare us to other teams, they look like a team. They look like a team that's they have a synergy. They kind of know what they're doing and they're working as one. And sometimes I feel like we're not that. But in that game against the Bulldogs, I actually felt like there was some degree of teamwork, that there was some degree of connectedness.
Yeah, spot on, Joel. I was worried the first 5 or 6 minutes when it was all the Dogs, and when Terrell dropped the kickoff, I thought, oh no, here we go. I was expecting the Dogs to be 6-0 up after 60 seconds, but after the first 5 minutes, the intensity was there. I think Taruva took a 20-meter tap restart and ran about 15 meters, and I think unfortunately Skelton dropped. I think it was Skelton dropped the ball the very next play, but. I mean, apart from, and there were a lot of errors from both sides, but apart from the wet weather errors that happened across the 80 minutes, we were really good. And where we'd had deficiencies over the past, and I'm not talking past weeks, but like past months, if not years, like where we were weak on our, especially right edge, and I know Skelton flipped from left to right, but I thought we were a lot stronger defensively out wide as well. And I guess the conditions have a bit to do with that as well, but I didn't see as much backing off in defence and not as much, being intimidated by the attack. And again, maybe that's just the heaviness of the field and the speed that the attackers are coming at you. But I thought we played with a lot more unity and a lot more cohesion. And maybe you're right. Maybe we just need to flood every ground that we play, at least every home ground that we have advantage of. Because we're clearly mud runners.
We'll go and play in the north of England. We need to join the Super League. Maybe we might be unbeatable.
Happy to relocate.
Yeah. I was going to jump ahead and ask the question, with 8 wins, now sitting on 20 points and a bye coming our way, so 22 points. Steve, are you confident enough to say that the wooden spoon era for the West Tigers is over?
Yeah, absolutely. We won't get the wooden spoon now. Not with like that. That was a 4-point win. With that and the bye. And we've got a couple of very winnable games. We've got the Titans again. They're playing better football, but I'm not sure they'll sustain it. We've got Manly, we've got Cowboys. So I'm expecting still a couple more wins for this season. And I think in the wash-up, when you think of the season we've had and the trouble that we've been through with Galvin, I think it's probably not a bad. At the end of the day, we'll look at that season. We'll look at it 2 ways. We'll say, what if? Because we're very close to being a top 8 side, but we can also look at the season and say, yeah, we've done okay. I think we're going to finish a fair way from the wooden spoon.
Because the games that are remaining, Nick, I think they will define our season to a large degree. Like if we win 50% of those games, or we win 3 out of 4, whatever it might be, as compared to if that's it for the year, we pack it up, we just coast home then I think that changes the whole context of the success of the year. And I think they're really important games for the club to get the bye and to keep this momentum going into next year.
Probably more important now than if you had asked the same question a week or 2 ago, because I know before the last pod that we did a week ago, before the Bulldogs game, I was very concerned that we wouldn't win another game for the rest of the year. After the way that we didn't turn up, I suppose, against Penrith, or perhaps we were just outplayed against Panthers. I was wondering where we were going to get that win from. And I know Eddie said, we should beat the Titans and we should beat the Cowboys, but when it's the West Tigers, you never should beat anyone. You've got to earn a win, regardless of who you play and where you sit on the ladder. And most teams, as we all know, are above us. But yeah, I mean, it's week to week, isn't it? Now we've beaten the Bulldogs, which I didn't expect. I think a lot of people didn't expect. So now the expectations go up. Now we're talking about, we should win probably 50% of our games going in. But you know what we're like? We may come out, after the bye against Manly and be a little bit off and lose that one. Hopefully not, but you're right. The potential's there to win 2 or maybe 3 games coming in, and who knows, we might even scrape into 9th. I don't know if we can get that high up, but it's looking a lot better than 17th.
100%.
We win every game, Nick. We can finish 8th. Don't write that off.
Don't get me too excited, Steve.
Steve's done the math.
Benji mentioned a lot in his press conference. I thought it was a really good press conference. But the one thing he said that really stuck with me, I thought it was fantastic. And he said, we've got to work out why we can't do this every week.
Yep.
And that's to your point too, Joel, of how we finish the season. I've made no secret of the fact that the last 2-3 years, I've been literally disgusted with the way we have finished the season. The absolutely limp way we've performed over the last month or 6 weeks even, where it looked as if no one could give a toss, and it was, and I thought to myself a number of times, well, why the hell should I care? Why should I buy membership next year when I've got to watch this rubbish, right? Like, at the end of our seasons have been terrible. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen with this group. No way. Like, we mightn't win. We mightn't even win 50% of the remaining games. I don't know, remaining games. But there's going to be effort. This team have put in effort every single week. But we do have to ask that question, because another word could be frustration. And we don't want to put a negative spin on what's been a very positive weekend. But why? Why are we not able to get up? Like, you can't get up that much every week. You can't, right? But you should be able to, like, the gap between that and where we usually run onto a field at has got to lessen, right? That gap, it's got to get closer, because they're a first grade football team, they're professional, and maybe it's the mindset. They ran out there with apart from Toa pulling out, with the best 17 we can field. So maybe there's a confidence there. I don't know, but they are a good football side. They're not far away from being a very competitive football side. Why can't they do that week on week? Maybe the answer is in the fact that we're still short, a couple of top liners and 3 or 4 backup players. Maybe that's the answer. But it is frustrating when you see that effort compared to, as you said, Nick, what we saw against Penrith the week before.
Yeah, well, one thing I was going to add in, Steve, but you covered it already, is the fact that 1 to 17, and we were just about, as good as it gets on Sunday against the Dogs. 1 to 17, and we spoke about the very beginning of the year when you put it on paper who our best 1 to 7 looks like, that we all thought, or I think most of us thought, we had the capability to play finals. And it goes back to looking at the results across the course of the year, all those tight ones that we've lost. And yes, we've lost games, and we've won a few by not many points as well. But again, if you start looking at those games that we lost by 2 or 4 points and convert those into wins, all of a sudden we're, what are we, 8? We're very, very close to the bottom of the 8. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. And maybe the fact that we've been so bad and so poor for such a long period of time, maybe it just comes back to mentality. Maybe it just comes back to the fact that these guys are still gelling, even though it's now, 25 or 24 rounds, 23 rounds, whatever it is in. We've had a lot of chop changing in positions throughout the season, and we've got to almost all the way through the year, and maybe we have found our best 1 to 17, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 that could shuffle around. But look, we're getting there, aren't we? We're very close, and I think we saw yesterday, and again, there's an asterisk because of the conditions, but I think we saw a lot of potential of what this team and club can do going forward.
I think that you can see that Kai Pearce-Paul will be a nice addition, but yeah, we're still 2 or 3. We're still 2 or 3 in the forward pack and 1 on the bench, I think, personally. So hopefully those players can shake out of the trees somewhere, as Richo likes to say. And hey, look what we did last off season. And there's every opportunity, and at least we're not buying a whole team. We're just tweaking now, almost to the point where it's just tweaking, which is fantastic. I think I think also what I like about them is that they seem to be a very connected side, like socially. There seems to be a brotherhood there. There seems to be a lot of connection amongst them, and that's something that you can really work on. It was a crazy when you think about the amount of ex-Penrith players that lined up for both sides yesterday. It was like the Penrith reunion, almost like their 2021, I think it was, grand final team, what was out there. And the other thing, just quickly, not that it matters for us, but if you look at the Bulldogs run, it could have been a really, really costly loss for them, because they've got a really tough run coming into the finals. Steve, you had your finger up.
Yeah, just on what you were saying there, Joel, like, we can't get carried away, because we definitely do still need 2 or 3 players in our starting team to bring us, and the middle being incredibly important, really. But what happened yesterday was the weather allowed the game to slow down, and we're able to compete at a level, at a pace that we can compete at. What happens to us is when we get, like, if we'd got the Bulldogs on a dry track, and I was watching them the week before when they were shifting left and right so succinctly and so quickly and so precisely, that would have just torn us apart. And whenever we get a team that's got big forwards that drive through the. But it's not just big forwards. It's teams that have big forwards that land on their stomachs and get up and play the ball quickly. And when that happens, we just cannot compete. We go backwards. Our defensive line gets frazzled and gets caught out, and then we end up getting beaten on the edge because the middle of our defensive line is just a mess, right? And everyone's been crammed in. And that's what goes wrong. So until we can fix that, unless we play 26 weeks in the pouring rain, we're still not going to be able to compete at that level. But, a couple of middles and we just might get there.
A couple of middles and things look different. Yep.
I actually wish we had brought Royce Hunt back on a dry day rather than yesterday, because I had a look at his stats. I know we've spoken about Royce a bit, when he's coming back and he's got to get his fitness levels up. I think I saw he played 15 minutes on Sunday, and I did watch the replay today. So I think he was taken off after about 5 minutes into the second half. And during that 5 minute period, I think he made one or two hit ups at the most, and that was about 3 sets apart. And in between those 3 sets, he basically stood in the middle and was just trotting either back into our attacking line or up into the defensive line. He really looked like he was just, heavy-footed, couldn't move. He really struggled in those conditions. But I love the impact that he had early in the year. I hope we can see it again before the season's done. But I really worry about, his future, especially with that mindset, coming into the club that he was talking about retirement. So I'm worried what might happen with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he does retire, and it's his decision, then that's perfectly okay. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe the body shape he has is an indication of his desire to want to continue to play NRL. Or maybe it's something that we've got to nurse him through to the end of to the off season, and he can come back and regroup and refine that fitness. But he's a better player than the experience that we've had, unfortunately.
Yes.
Let's talk about, there's a couple of things, but which way should we go? I'd like to give Sione Fainu a rap. I thought the move into lock, he was, again, excellent. And Samuela, some of the hits that Samuela put on, really, really impressed by both of those two. And when I start talking about 2 or 3 middles, I think Sione takes one of those spots. But I am really, really worried about Pole. And I know it was wet, but two costly errors that led to both of the Bulldogs' first tries. And sometimes, Steve, there's guys that, look the goods, have the odd game, but just aren't quite there. And I'm starting to have my concerns about Fonua.
Well, I think it takes time to mature in the middle. Yeah. It's not a young person's position. You're not going to be 18, 19, 20, not knocking the house down in the front row. That's for sure. So I would like to say not quite ready yet with Pole. Like he's first grade able. He has the talent to play first grade. He just doesn't have the consistency in his game at the moment. We've got to keep encouraging him, or the coaching staff have to keep encouraging him to be more consistent. Trot out consistent performances that are error-free and impactful, because when he is impactful, he's very impactful. It's just not consistent. But, mate, I just want to go a bit further with that, because I want to mention Alex Toll. I thought he was super yesterday, and I think he's having a pretty good year, and he's definitely a better post-meter runner than he has been in the past, post-contact meter runner, I should say, than he has been in the past. Yeah, I thought Samuela Fainu was awesome under the conditions. I just love the way Luai was feeding Fainu, and he was just running straight at that little gutless, insipid player that we're going to talk about soon, I hope. And I thought 12 was really good. Yeah, Sione, absolutely. 12 May, typical. Game. The only guy I'm going to be negative on is Seafaf. I just thought, he tries his guts out, and he tries his guts out. And he did some good things, but throwing a ball at someone's head, and then because he was in a rage in the very next set, slamming his shoulder into a bloke's head was absolutely brain dead stupid and could have cost us the game. It really could have. We were very lucky that it didn't impact us more than it did. I'm not a Seafaf basher. I'm quite happy to have him off the bench in the 17 a lot of the time. But if he's going to do stuff like that, like he's got a 3-week suspension, deservedly. But if he hadn't copped that, I'd have dropped him if I was coach for next week, because what he did was just absolutely like, if you're going to talk about standards with Hunt, you got to talk about standards with Seafarth.
Well, the biggest shame for me on that one, Steve, is that was the Seyfarth we saw last year and the year before and the year before. Like he's been pretty good this
Yeah.
season, and I reckon he's pulled his head in. And I actually thought he had a pretty decent game, except for that 60 seconds where he just went completely brain dead yesterday. That trying to get out of that tackle when he was on the ground, yeah, he was pushing, Max King, I think it was in the head,
Yeah.
which, maybe he shouldn't have aimed for the head, but he was trying to get up, and it was also, it was a bit of niggle from King on Seyfarth too. He had him on his back, and we've talked about it before. Players know if they target Seyfarth, they'll get a bite. And
Yep.
unfortunately, Seyfarth bit yesterday, and we haven't seen that for a while. And when he put that shoulder in the next play and got penalised, you could tell straight away he knew that he'd stuffed up because he was banging himself on the forehead, and
Mm.
he regretted that instantly. But you're right. I mean, he shouldn't be doing that. I still don't think he had a bad game apart from that, which you're right, Steve, could have been a lot more costly. Thank God it wasn't. I think we actually came out 2 points better after that 10-minute spell that he was off the field too. But yeah, shame it ended that way for him.
It was the 10-minute period where we won the game. Like that was going to be either the win
Yep.
or the lose part of the game when he went off. He is a liability. There's always that potential with him that he's going to do that dumb thing, and he has struggled against the Bulldogs. If you remember last year, he got 10 minutes against the Bulldogs as well, so they must really know how to niggle him. But what did we think of the comparison with the Crichton tackle? And no sin bin. I was perplexed that he didn't get 10 minutes. And I know that that
Uh,
player was falling, Taylor May was falling, Steve, but I couldn't believe that he didn't get 10.
no, I have to admit, I have to say, I think the referee got it right. Like if you're going to use that word mitigating circumstance, he did get him in the head, so he got put on report, and I think that was fair enough. But he did survive. I think that's the right call. The thing is that needs to be consistent, Joel. Right, you need to be like when a bloke slips that much,
Hmm.
and then he gets it. Right, there was absolutely zero intent. Like there was intent from Seafarth. Seafarth deserved the 10 minutes in the bin.
Hmm.
I don't believe Crichton did deserve. But what annoys everyone is we'll turn on the TV next week, and the exact same tackle will happen, and the bloke will go to the bin.
Yeah,
Right, that's the issue. But I
correct.
thought in isolation, both those results I felt were correct.
Nick, I wanted to swing back to you with Pole, just because I had the question ready for you. He's played for a young man, he's played a lot of NRL, and we've used him a lot more than maybe other clubs would have for a prop at this point. And Steve is right. It is a part of the field where you do tend to have to mature into it. Uh, would you consider, because he's had, it wasn't just this game, but the last couple of months he's been a bit shaky. Would you give him some time in State Cup to New South Wales Cup to build his confidence, to just give him a bit of a chance to sort of work on his game outside of the limelight?
No, I wouldn't because I don't think we've got anyone worth replacing him in the NRL side. I get the conversation, but if anything, I'd be, making sure that he's only playing off the bench and maybe playing, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes. I think he's got a much bigger engine than that, but I definitely think he's worth keeping around for the impact that he can bring.
Yeah.
Yes, yesterday again or on Sunday was an asterisk one with those conditions. Put him on a dry track. His footwork at the line's incredible. He's so powerful, and he tends to hit the line quite low as well. Like he gets his body down low, and it makes him very hard
Mm.
to put down very quickly onto his back. So what is he, 22 or something? Like he's very young, right? But yeah, he's probably what are props? They say props mature at what about
5.
25, 26 or something?
Mm.
Yeah, so he's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just reduce his workload maybe a little bit, but give him little things to improve on each week. Like his ball security is one, and his defense is another.
Mm.
And I know Steve here was at one of the ambush events that I attended at Combank a little while ago, and he actually did make a comment that he knew he had to work on his defense. So
Mm.
I'm sure that he is working on that, and that will come good. Give him time; it'll come good, and he will be one of the elite props in the competition in a few years' time.
One of the big talking points from the game was when the West Tigers team was selected on Tuesday night. It was the first time that we had this full spine. And then just before the game, Benji made sure that we didn't get the full spine, and there was a change. But the reinstatement, the bringing back, or the availability of Jahream Bula, Steve, like when I first saw him, I could see the speed and I could see the potential, but I was a little bit worried. Basketball background and the like. I thought he might potentially be a bit of a flash in the pan. But in terms of being one of the better fullbacks in the NRL, I think he's continuing to rise to another level all of the time.
Yeah, he's like we did it. I think we did a comparison a few weeks ago. We sort of had him around mid pack. If you looked at all the NRL fullbacks at the moment, but I think you're 100% right, Joel. He'll keep climbing, and I think he's going to become elite. He's showing all the signs of it. Like that try he scored when he took the pass off Doueihi. I watched it again today on the replay. He actually, when Doueihi picked up that ball, he was actually on the open side, and he looked up. He looked up, and he's a footballer. Right? He's got football sense, and he saw as Doueihi took off. He saw that the defense was going to come from the open side, from the inside, right? So he ran around. He ran around to the blind side, and he actually did a real loop to come up on Doueihi's right hand side and the blind side, so that Doueihi could give the ball to him on that side where the defense wasn't going to be, which gave him a free run to the line. It's only a little thing. And you might say, well, it's just common sense, but he did it, right? He saw it and he acted and reacted. And he was so good for us, yesterday. Coming out of our end, just his carries out of him were just absolutely fantastic. And like, I know it was wet, and there was a couple of times there where opposition players slipped over. So you can only run at what's in front of you. He just gives us another point of attack too, right? He makes the opposition think more about what we're doing with the football, and that's only a good thing.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Steve. I was just about to jump in and say the indecision he puts in the defensive line when he's running around the back of a play. You can see it. Like he's that dangerous and that good a player that he makes the defensive teams or defensive structures think twice about what they're going to do, whether they commit to that front line of attack or whether they second guess and wonder what Buller's going to do out the back. But yeah, he's such a quality player. I did question, maybe it might have been a month or so ago, about whether he was worth the 900,000 or whatever his contract is, like the option is. But
Yep.
I'll tell you what, I'd pay it. Like he's a player we have to keep. We cannot let him go. It's another James Tedesco in my eyes. Like if we lost Buller, we'd be up Poop Creek, to put it, as simply or as politely as I can. And the one thing I'll add on to that, Steve, you said you watched the replay. At the end of the game, when Lachie Galvin came up and he was shook Jahream Bula's hand, and they were having a great chat. And yes, they're ex-teammates, but they spent a lot of time talking to each other. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, Bula was photographed in the Bulldogs camp at one of the Bulldogs games in the members section or the players area, whatever it was. Not only was he having a great, deep and meaningful with Lachie Galvin on Sunday evening after the game, but all the Bulldogs players came up and shook his hand, and they all said more than nice game. They all, said, quite a few words to him. Just made me a little bit scared that he's not getting in too tight with the Bulldogs players. I'd hate Phil Gould to come and up under our nose again and pinch him. He's one that I would really be worried about losing.
Mm. I don't know, but was it really even him? That picture, I wasn't 100% convinced that it was Buller, but I might be wrong.
I think it was a bit grainy.
Yeah.
It's not a. There's no one has said 100% he was there.
No.
It's like the Loch Ness Monster. It's there, maybe.
We'll see what
I don't know.
happens. We'll see what happens. I wanted to give Naden. I'll give him one rap. I mean, he was enthusiastic and keen all game, but he did one good thing in particular that I wanted to highlight, and that was when May was going out and he planted his feet on the sideline and he stopped him from going out. I thought that was very clever. But on the not so clever, the video, bad look for the club, I think. I mean, Steve, the guy is borderline first grade, like he's fighting for his NRL career. Like, can you afford to have someone like this that you just can't trust him? He's just got this. He has a great game. He's played himself back into NRL contention and undoes it all 3 hours later.
Okay, so I want to say something positive before I reply to that. And there was that moment. There was another moment where where there were a ball. Canterbury had the ball. They dropped it, and he out enthused two Canterbury players to dive on the ball.
Yeah.
And I think they were about 30 metres out attacking our line, and
Yeah.
it was a pivotal moment. And so yeah, I thought his effort was he didn't let anyone down
No.
yesterday. But in reference to what you're saying, mate, we interviewed him at the ambush at Campbelltown. This guy was articulate, intelligent, well spoken. Well, that's articulate, isn't it? He had the audience eating out of the palm of his hand. He was funny. He was engaging. He was enthusiastic. He wanted to tell stories. He was possibly the best guest we've ever had. And I wasn't expecting it. I really wasn't.
Yeah.
What I saw on video last night or today, sorry, was not that bloke, right? It was a total different character.
Mm.
And that's the guy that's been letting the real Brent Naden down his whole career.
Yeah.
And you can't do that stuff. And it like I was in the minority when I said that neither Taruva nor Luai should have done that social media stuff with Lockie Galvin back around round 6, round 7, whenever that happened. It was ill-disciplined rubbish, right, from two experienced first graders. Well, this was another thing, right? That whole scenario, what they did out in the field, like everyone said, oh, it's nothing, don't overreact. Yeah. I get it. I get that. But you've got to be more disciplined than that, right? Yeah. Like score a try, put the ball down, right? Turn around, jog back to the halfway and do it again, right? Save all that crap for the dressing room afterwards. And like, what would Craig Bellamy's reaction be?
Yeah. Well, especially when you're coming, 13th, and you're playing the team that's coming second.
Yeah.
I know. You got to be carrying them about, you know?
And I don't want to be negative because there was so much positive. Yeah. But there's just been a few instances this year of that Lairism that we don't need, right? No. Like we don't need that in the club.
My fear, right? Like it's one thing to do it on the field, and it was probably a little bit over the top on the field. I get where they were coming from. You know, they were pumped up, they were knocking off a tall poppy, etc. Yeah, the off-field video that was posted was dumb, and a huge mistake. If Naden was playing for the Melbourne Storm and did the same reaction on social media, and that was captured by the media, and people were taking screenshots and videos, etc., to make sure it never is deleted, what would the action be on Brent Naden?
Yeah, it would be different to the crickets that we're hearing. Yeah, so there'd be some consequences.
Yeah, it worries me what may happen. Like you said, Steve, he's a real character, and he obviously fits in really well with the boys. And he had a great game yesterday, and more often than not, he shows brilliance on the field, as opposed to the stupid brain dead mistakes that he makes and, you know, silly choices, but from time to time. But he's an asset, and he's still got some good footy in him. But yeah, just actions like that just just makes you scratch your head and think, far out, why is this happening again? You know, that it just puts a tarnish on the win. That we should just be sitting here, you know, talking about how good it was.
I remember an interview Josh Adokar did years ago, right? And it was talking about when he left the Tigers, went to Melbourne. And I don't know whether he'd done this at the Tigers or he did it at very early stages of playing for Melbourne. But he scored a try, and as he was running the last 10 metres, he put his hand up in the air and sort of put his finger up and was signaling to the crowd, you know, and had the ball tucked under one arm, and he dived over the line. Well, apparently in the wash-up on the Monday or the Tuesday, Craig Bellamy got him in the office, showed the tape to him and said to him, Josh, you're a great player. You ever do that, you'll never play first grade here. Right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and he just said, I learned a valuable lesson there. I can be as lairish and I can be myself, but if I'm not serious out in that football field, there's no future for me. And I hope that our coaching staff have the same attitude.
Steve, do you think there's a chance that he looked engaging and charming and well-spoken simply because he was sitting opposite Gary?
That's highly unlikely. You never know.
I mean, in comparison.
Well, I suppose in comparison, yeah, that's a good point. That's a
Hello,
good
Gary.
point.
Love you,
Another good
Gary.
point is the 78% completion, which I think is a fantastic stat given the conditions were abysmal to say the least. The 78% completion, it was probably the difference between the two teams. The Bulldogs finished I think it was 63%, and they dropped it at some really, really important moments. One of those important moments was dropped by Lachlan Galvin, and Steve's sitting there desperately wanting to have a few words to say about our former
Well,
father.
I was going to open with gutless and insipid, but I already used those earlier. While you were talking, I was writing a couple of. So I just want to say what a spineless and cowardly performance that was by this loudmouth, over-entitled little sport brat. Right now, I'm sorry. I usually don't get this fired up, but I was. You asked people sitting around me on the weekend. I was fired up because what this guy did to us and the way he treated Benji Marshall, the lack of respect he showed his teammates and his coach and all that was just disgusting. And his parents ought to be ashamed of themselves with the way that they've allowed him to have that sort of behavior. But there were three moments in that. Well, there were three things I want to point out. One was his absolute non-attempt at Samuela Fainu as Fainu crossed the line. He did not want to put his shoulder in. That was cowardly. Then there was the missed pass when Crichton threw the ball at him and he just pulled his hand out of the way. He didn't want to take it in case he knocked it on, right? That was gutless also. And I said on the day he ran the ball into the line once. I was wrong. But I watched the replay. He ran it to the line 3 times in 80 minutes. He was so overawed and he was so put out by what the crowd were giving him and what the Tigers were giving him because they ran it. That first 20 minutes, they just ran at him time and time again. Now, I'm on record as stating I hate the sort of garbage the journalists and social media and fans put up against players. I hate it. But this kid, what he did this year, he deserves everything he got, and he failed. And I'm telling you now, if they take him into the semi-finals and the heat's on, I'm not sure he's going to be up to it.
It's a potential powder keg.
Yep.
Did you boo him, Steve, yesterday?
No, I didn't boom. I was too busy because I'm sitting right behind the trainers, the Canterbury trainers. I'm just 2 rows off the fence, and I was just too busy yelling out to the trainers to give Sexton a go. But they didn't reply.
On a more mature note, I think it's good for the club to get the game out of the way, to get the. It doesn't matter whether in terms of winning or losing, but just get the game out of the way. We can sort of now move on. I think until you play your former club, there's always sort of that little bit of a strange feeling. Now he's officially a Bulldogs fan and a Bulldogs player, and off he goes, and whatever happens from here. I am always worried though that he who laughs last laughs best. He'll be back. He'll haunt us in the future, so we can't get too carried away. There's a new function on the West Tigers podcast forum. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you just hit the little microphone and you can leave audio recorded messages, which is really good. So the invitation is out there, guys. People listening, join the forum, or to the people that are already on the forum, click the button. You can leave us a question or a comment that we may or may not, depending on us, use in the podcast. So it's a really good way to sort of introduce a little bit of quote unquote talk back into the podcast, which I think is good. So give it a go and have a go at it, Nick.
I think I saw, Joel, is it a maximum of 2 minutes you can leave a recording up to?
I think that's what the setting is. Yeah, maximum 2 minutes. Yeah.
No good for Gary.
No, that won't cover it at all.
Can I mention one more thing about the footy, Joel, before we go in a different direction? I just want to give a shout out to Jahream Skelton. You know, like he's had a hard few weeks, you know, but defensively, I thought in those conditions he was fantastic. He did in attack, he did everything asked of him, and they peppered him with a high ball.
And safe under the high ball. Yeah, he did really well.
He was really good. I just thought it was a real confidence builder because I can't remember who I was talking to. It might have been Rachel or Troy, or one of those guys that come to the ambush, and they were saying that they spoke to him and they said, "Oh, you're playing pretty well," and he said, "Oh, my defense isn't real good. I got to improve on it. So he seems a really humble guy, and fairly realist, a bit of a realist. So I thought to get that game under his cap yesterday and play the way he did was a credit to him.
Yeah, and very effective when he comes in and puts that hit on when it does come off.
Yeah.
When it doesn't come off, we got a problem. But yeah, how did the ambush event go, Steve?
Yeah, it was great. We had Shannon McDonald there.
Shannon
Gallant. Oh, mate, you got me there.
Better Shannon.
The other Shannon.
I don't think you'll find it Shannon McDonald.
No, Shannon Gallant was there. He is the newly appointed recruitment manager at West Tigers. So Gary interviewed him. Gary does all our interviews, and talked about his playing days and some interesting stories out of that, which was good. But people were really interested in him talking about recruitment and where we're heading with recruitment. The young guys coming through. He couldn't say enough good things about Macassini. And him coming through and a few others there he mentioned. So it was a good event, and that was the last ambush event for the year. So a pretty good one.
But big plans for next year.
Huge plans for next year, and we're hoping, and looks like we're going to have an ambush membership for the first time.
Right.
So we are trying to get a burrow type experience happening at West Tigers. You know how South Sydney have the burrow, and all the guys sit together and cheer and carry on. So we're trying to copy that a little bit, and so we're going to have an ambush membership. So that will come out when the memberships come out. So anyone who would like to sit together with West Tiger supporters, I know it's a big thing, you go to a game, you're ready to support, and you sit down in your seat, and then someone turns up from the opposition, sits next to you. Nothing worse. Almost as bad as a $21 hamburger, that one. So if you want to be surrounded by West Tigers, like-minded people, the ambush membership bay might be the go for you.
Yeah, and it won't be too long before memberships start to come up on the horizon for 2026 already. We're starting to see the end of the season, which is funny because it just felt like it started a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, very stressful game, that Bulldogs game. I'm very, very pleased to have the bye this week. Nick, I can't say that I enjoyed any part of that game other than about the last 2 or 3 minutes. I couldn't enjoy it. So a weekend off sounds good.
You know what, Joel? Apart from the first 5 minutes, I actually really enjoyed that game. And you know what? I had a feeling I could sense it through my beautiful Hisense 75-inch TV sitting here in the warmth and dry of my home that we were on. And once we started settling into that game after the first 5 minutes was done, I just had a feeling that, that things were going to go well. I also had extreme doubts during that second half, as we all do. And that's just the scar tissue rising again, right? That even at 20 in front, I thought, okay, how long until Bulldogs score? And then they score again, and all of a sudden, our tails are up and we're in trouble. Well, tails are down between our legs, more to the point. But you know what? We played out a really good game of footy. We've celebrated well. We've got a week off. Life can't be any better. I just hope the sun comes out next weekend because all the golf courses are washed out on the weekend. I was very upset. So a bit of sunshine next weekend. Life can't be any better, Joel.
It could be better if you got a free Hisense TV for giving them a plug.
Love you, Hisense.
I remember when 75-inch was all I could have in my lounge room too, Nick. I remember those days.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, boys.